Rich Eisen said on his show that he believes the Giants are absolutely done with Daniel Jones. Eisen also believes that the Giants could be aggressive and trade up into the top 3 for a quarterback. Ooh. Louis Riddick blasted the Giants for this, defending the Jones and taking shots at Evan Neal, Darren Waller, and the Giants receivers. There is also belief that Brian Daboll was very impressed with J.J. McCarthy at the NFL Combine. The Giants also did not use their franchise tag, meaning both Saquon Barkley and Xavier McKinney will enter free agency. McKinney said he is hopeful for the Giants' return, but also tweeted starting to see life from a bird's view. I don't know what that means. Saquon said, despite wanting the Giants wanting to be a Giant for life, that he understands it's a business and football, and that loyalty means nothing. So I will say this. First of all, the Giants are absolutely wrong about the Saquon Barkley situation. Saquon Barkley is one of the best running backs in the NFL. He's explosive. He could do everything you're asking a running back to do and more. He could block. He is a prototypical Christian McCaffrey. Now, has he had the last season or two like a Christian McCaffrey? No. But he puts up those numbers. He's giving you scrimmage yards. He's catching the ball in the backfield. He's running the ball. He's doing everything you ask him to do and more. And he's really the Giants' offense. He's been the Giants' offense for the last, 4 years. He averages almost 62% of the Giants' offense and snaps. That should tell you one thing about how important Saquon Barkley is to the Giants' offense. But Joe Schoen and our friend Mr. Daboll don't believe that. They think they can find a running back, like Jeff says, in the draft, in the 4th, the 3rd, or even the 6th or 7th round. You don't find Saquon Barkley's growing on trees, ladies and gentlemen. And if you can, please show me the tree. I would love to go there because the Jets could use another tree that big. You sit here today, and the Giants are trying to figure out where are they going to go at number 6. Do they move up to number 3? They don't need to move up to number 3 if they want J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy will be there at number 6. Do they want Jaden Daniels from LSU, the Heisman Trophy winner? Are you going to take a chance with that kid? He's another Lamar Jackson. But is he as good as Lamar Jackson? Lamar Jackson didn't have those weapons like Jaden Daniels had in LSU. Remember, Lamar Jackson came from Louisville. LSU has Thomas and obviously Malik Neighbors. They had weapons all over the field. They had a great running game, a good offensive line. He was set up to not fail. I'll tell you somebody that did and was set up to fail, and that was Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones, and you could see the numbers Fish just put up there. 6 games, 67.5 completion percentage, 909 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and 30 sacks. 40 carries, 206 rushing yards, 1 touchdown, and had a 1-5 record before he got hurt. There's a reason why his numbers were that low. There's a reason why he hasn't put up the numbers the Giants thought he was going to put up when he took over for Eli Manning. Oh, I'm sorry, Geno Smith. The fact is, the Giants failed. They failed to build this kid, protect this kid, develop this kid. That's the problem. You bring in Evan Neal, an absolute failure. The guy doesn't even know how to play tackle. I'll be very surprised if he knows how to play guard, center. Hey, how about we put him on the bench and let him feed you some water? The guy's a better water boy than he is as an offensive tackle. It's disgraceful. But the Giants want to pin it on somebody. They want to point their fingers at somebody. So you know what they're going to do? They're going to point their fingers at Daniel Jones, even though he only played for 6 games last year. And I'm gonna give a shout out to Louis Riddick. I'm going to give a shout out to the guy that should have been the GM for the New York Giants, not Joe Schoen, Louis Riddick, who interviewed not once, but twice for the job, and the Giants told him to go suck it. He is right. Evan Neal failed Daniel Jones. Darren Waller failed Daniel Jones. And what wide receiver do we want to bring up? I don't know, Sterling Shepard, who got a 3-year extension. Good job, Joe Schoen. Wonderful signing. How about, who else? What else are we going to bring up? I don't know. Slayton being another one. Everybody thought was going to be a number 2. Oh, my God, he's another Odell Beckham. Meanwhile, what was he, a 4th or 5th round draft pick?
And then there's a great Wan'Dale Robinson, the 170-pound receiver they drafted in the 2nd round. Yeah, that's going to work well in this type of NFL offense. A guy that's a gadget player. And let's not forget the great Kenny Golladay.
Honestly, the Giants have failed for Daniel Jones. And if I was Daniel Jones, I wouldn't want to be here. If I was Daniel Jones, I'm going to do everything I can to put up big numbers this season and let them trade me. Let them move me. Let them drop me. I'll go somewhere else and prove myself with a real coach, with a real GM, with a team that actually will protect me and give me weapons around me. You're going to go up and try to move up in the 1st round for a quarterback? Who's your rookie quarterback going to throw to?
And again, that's the problem with, if you're going to have this idea when you came in as a GM anyway, then you should have hung on to Saquon Barkley, give him what he wanted, and then drafted your quarterback later. Like, you don't have an obvious plan for either one of them. And if Saquon Barkley you knew you wanted to get rid of, then trade him at the time that he had value for the draft after the 22 season, or even when you first came in. Like, he could have gotten paid then. You could have gotten value then. You knew you needed wide receivers. You knew you needed offensive linemen. Trade him then. Or to keep Saquon Barkley, and if you knew you were going to move on from Daniel Jones, don't pay him $40 million a year, where now his contract is pretty much untradeable this season, and you're going to go draft another quarterback and throw him into these awful circumstances that the Giants are in. You have Andrew Thomas as a cornerstone piece at tackle. I like Schmitz the way he played when he was healthy. They have nothing else that is a cornerstone piece now that they're losing Saquon Barkley. They have all these random small slot wide receivers. You have an injury-prone tight end in Darren Waller, who has 1 year left on his deal, and they're going to have to pay him $14 million or something like that. Hopefully he can stay healthy for more than 8 games. And that's what you're going to trust with J.J. McCarthy or Jaden Daniels if you do trade up, or any other quarterback that you might draft in even later in the draft. Say they don't draft one in the 1st round, maybe they draft one in the 2nd round. You're going to throw Penix, you're going to throw Bo Nix or whoever in the fire like that too. Like, that's what you're going to see instead of Daniel Jones. Like, the philosophy here should have been able to go all in on one approach if you were going to do that, if you knew you didn't want Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones from the start.
If you're looking at a quarterback that could be available in the next 2 or 3 years, if you decide to draft a quarterback and let him sit behind that veteran quarterback for 2 or 3 years, because that's what you're going to do. That's what you're going to have to do if you want this kid to develop. If you look at all these successful young quarterbacks, when they come in the league, unless you're a big-time superstar, and you bring in J.J. McCarthy is not NFL ready. He is going to be NFL ready in 2 or 3 years. That means you're going to have to put a veteran quarterback in front of him that you can trust, that's going to be in front of him and be able to teach him, be able to let him understand how to read blitzes, how to read defenses. They don't have that. And I'm not saying that. I'm not throwing Daniel Jones under the bus. The reason why Daniel Jones hasn't developed the way everybody thought he was going to, it was because how many coaches has he had? Mm-hmm. How many offensive linemen have he had over the last 3 years? I mean, it's a completely different offensive line. So you're putting him in harm's way every single year, and you're going to blame your quarterback for that? I have 3 Giant fans on this show. We have Scoops, we have Speedy, and we have Fish. All 3 of you guys are Giant fans. I am a lonely Jet fan, and even though I'm a lonely Jet fan, I feel for Daniel Jones. I feel for Danny Dimes, because if this organization really, truly respected Daniel Jones. And the only reason why they gave Daniel Jones the 2-year, $40 million a year, they actually gave him 4 years, 40 a year,
Right.
but they can opt out after the 3rd year. The only reason why they did that is because of the season he had, the numbers he put up. And thank you to Saquon Barkley, which, by the way, they gave up on too.
Mm-hmm. And again, that's the logic that you have to have if you're going to keep two players together, is to keep them together in the same way. And the Giants are losing this rapport with this regime in terms of keeping the coaches happy with Dable now, as 4 of them will resign from the team. And now with these players that seemingly they're not keeping. Dexter Lawrence and Andrew Thomas are the only 2 players that they've paid so far, and Daniel Jones. But even Daniel Jones, they were kind of fishy with. They didn't give him the 5th-year option. They forced him to prove something, and then they finally catered into it. But still, that was only because of his agent, really. Remember, his agent was trying to push him to pay him $50 million a year, and obviously they weren't going to do that. But even so, like, Daniel Jones is still worthy of being a quarterback under better circumstances than what the Giants have given him. And Saquon Barkley, he's been healthy. They were healthy, luckily, in the 2022 season. And when Saquon Barkley wasn't healthy, the offense was as pitiful as anybody in the NFL. And that has to go to show with the rest of the draft picks that they have, the fact that they will not trade or draft good wide receivers, and definitely not going to draft an offensive lineman either, when they could have had better talent in that draft for that.
And everybody's asking me, and I see what everybody's posting, why am I yelling? Because if I was a Giant fan, which I'm not, but I have a lot to say about this regime when it comes to coaching and executives there. If I was a Giant fan, I would not be happy with this. I'm sorry. And Jeff, you speak so highly of Daniel Jones. If you're sitting here today, and by the way, Daniel Jones is probably not going to be a part of this team if they bring in another quarterback. If they bring in J.J. McCarthy, more than likely, Daniel Jones is going to lose his job before the season even starts. He is not even going to start this year. He will be sitting the bench. The Giants will sit him as a $40 million player. You heard it from me, because the Giants did this the same way with a guy like Kurt Warner. They did this. They let Kurt Warner play for 5 or 6 games. And what did they do? They pulled him. They had a winning record. The Giants, I think, at the point when they pulled him, if I'm not mistaken, they were 4-2 or something like that, of some kind. I don't remember the numbers, but Kurt Warner gave the Giants a winning record. And what did they do? They decided, hey, you know what? We're going to sit him. We're going to trade him to Arizona, and we're going to start a young Eli Manning. What happened when Eli Manning started that year? It was a horrible rest of the season.
Mm-hmm. And look at the teams that have gone through all these retread quarterbacks recently, just trying to find the answer within a couple of years of each other. You joke about it all the time. With the Jets are the first team to do it, like a top 5 pick in 4 years apart with Sam Darnold and Zach Wilson. Then you saw what Arizona did. These are all bad quarterback teams. Now the Bears might do it too with Justin Fields if they get rid of him, and then drafting Caleb Williams this year. So, I mean, I'm not saying that these prospects in the NFL draft aren't good this year, because obviously I think a lot of them are, but the Giants are not a team like the Bears that have talent around them with DJ Moore and Cole Kmet and a good offensive line. They don't have the money that the Bears have. The Giants have a good amount of money, but the Giants had chances to get wide receivers in trades.
The Giants aren't any good.
Yeah.
They have nothing. If you're a Giant fan right now, honestly, if you're listening to us, wherever you're listening to us around the country on all the different platforms that we are on, okay, you're going to sit here and tell me that if you were a free agent, or even if you're coming out of the draft, you want to play for the Giants? Why would you want to play for the Giants? Even the Jets, who have been a laughing stock of an organization for the last, 40 years, 50 years as an organization, I would believe that most of these free agent players that are available this offseason would be more interested in going to play for the Jets and that crazy executive bunch of idiots than coming to the New York Giants and dealing with Dable, who, by the way, 3 or 4 coaches wanted to step away from the organization because they can't stand them, and Joe Schoen, who doesn't know how to draft, and by the way, doesn't know how to bring in free agents.
And again, you also look at the trajectory of coaches as well. If Dable is not there anymore after this year because the Giants fail again, and Joe Schoen is gone too, you're throwing a rookie quarterback into the fire with now having to learn a second scheme in 2 years. And how did that work for somebody like Baker Mayfield, who had to deal with all those different coaches? How did that work for Sam Darnold, going from Adam Gase after they had a different offense the first year? It doesn't help for their development either. Jared Goff is really the only one that got that benefit because Sean McVay was that good of a coach. There's no guarantee you're going to find that good of a coach if Dable's gone again. Dable schematically is the best coach the Giants have had since the whole Tom Coughlin ending of it.
If you were the Giants executive right now, if you were Joe Schoen, where do you go in the draft?
I would go with the receiver 2. I consider offensive line. I would not go a quarterback whatsoever. I'm not a fan of McCarthy the same way a lot of other people are. If Jaden Daniels falls, maybe you take that chance. But I don't know.
So if Jaden Daniels falls to the New York Giants at 6, you draft him.
Even that might be fishy too, because the Giants
got that fishy.
Yes, that was good. But I don't even know if Jaden Daniels is a good scheme fit with the Giants offense the way it's constructed right now with Dable. Like, yeah, Josh Allen had mobility with Dable, but Josh Allen could run even before that too. That wasn't really all right. Brian Dable's designing all these great runs for him. And yeah, they did it better than for Daniel Jones than what these other coaches did, because Brian Dable's light years ahead play calling wise, but still, I just don't know if I really trust that kind of thing. I still would rather go offensive line or wide receiver. I'm hoping that Alt falls in there, or Fashanu, or again, even like Malik Neighbors. I know you think Malik Neighbors is going to the Giants.
I do, but he might even be in the top 3, top 4. Some people say he might be picked over Marvin Harrison Jr. Mm-hmm. So just because of his pure talent and his speed and his ability to running routes. So I mean, and some people, even the NFL Network, rated him the highest top prospect in this year's draft, Malik Neighbors. So that says a lot about who Malik is and what type of player he is. He's a game-changing wide receiver. The Giants haven't had that since another LSU player we all remember.
Yep,
that's Odell Beckham. And here's the thing: if you look at the conference right now, the NFC conference, it is wide open. All right, is anybody going to trust that the Cowboys are going to make a run next year? They've had problems in the second half of the season. They can't really get this defense moving. They've lost some players in free agency. Some guys are probably going to go looking elsewhere to other organizations because they don't want to be a Cowboy anymore. The Eagles, they just lost Travis Kelce's brother, Jason Kelce, Hall of Fame, one of the greatest centers to ever play the game. He's retiring. They're going to have to rebuild that offensive line. Johnson's old. That offensive line is aging. How much? And by the way, they bring in Kellen Moore. How good are they going to be offensively over there? The Commanders, they have a new coaching regime. I mean, they have a defensive-minded coach. Yes, they brought in Kingsbury. Do they move up for Caleb Williams? If they do, are they going to be any good? Who knows? I mean, the Lions, we know what they are. The Packers, well, let's see what they could do with Jordan, with Jordan again this year. So, again, there's a lot of questions right now with the conference. I could go up and down all these different teams. Does anybody believe the Falcons, even if they bring in Kirk Cousins, does anybody believe this young, and by the way, new coaching staff is going to jump everybody else and jump? Hey, listen, the Giants, all they need is 1 or 2 offensive weapons, and they can compete next year. They can. If Daniel Jones can actually stay on the field, they can actually win. Who's to say the Giants can't win that division?